Can Doug DeMuro sell a car that nobody's ever heard of? Tune in today for the bitter truth.
Get those words!
And that sound means it's time for a brand new episode of Bid Nerds. Welcome, everyone, to your daily nerd out on the most interesting car of the day from all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. My name's John Polnik, along with my partner Michael Deeb. What are you laughing about, buddy?
It just as we like rolled into this thing, it just dawned on me what you and I were like sort of arguing about before we went live was that the car that we selected is so rare and obscure that like we didn't even know what we were talking about. You're like, oh, that car. You're like, wait, no, you've got the wrong link, and that's like
I thought it was. Well, let's before we get to the car today, Michael Deeb stepping all over the lead here. No, look, we do find the most interesting car of the day from all the automotive auction sites, and this definitely qualifies. Today's car definitely qualifies as the most interesting because we don't even know what the hell it is. It's definitely not something that I think you would see at Godden Classic of Las Vegas. This is a car that they would carry. Godden Classic is definitely got a higher classic car. What do they do over at Godden Classic?
So Godden Porsche of Las Vegas was the very first Porsche Classic partner in North America. As such, Porsche of Germany vetted them for the passion, the expertise, and the capacity to take on the parts, the servicing, and the sales of all your favorite classic Porsches. Call our friends at Godden Porsche and tell them the Bid Nerds sent you.
That's correct. Those guys are awesome over there. We love them. Yeah. Shout out to Paul and Steve and Mikey. All right. So, look, hey, if you're new to the channel, thanks for checking us out. Maybe by the time this goes on, we're at 1,000 subscribers. I don't know. We're very, very, very close to that.
It will be. It will be. It will be. Has to.
So, we want to shout out to all the nerds out there, the nerd herd, we like to call you. You guys, thank you so much for being a part of the show and continuing to watch. If, like I said, if you're new and you're checking us out, go ahead and hit the subscribe, like, and notification button right now if you haven't done so already. And look, what we do when we talk about these most interesting cars, it's not just a conversation about the car. We actually predict what we think is going to happen with the car's auction. And then on the second half of the show, when you stick around later, and that's why it's so important to stick around to the other half of the show, is that we reconcile our incorrect predictions with what actually happened. We show you the results of the auction and how off we were, and then we talk about why. And I think a lot of times that's more interesting than our predictions. So make sure you stick around to the end.
You had a Yahtzee last month. That's not bad.
That's did. You know, a bunch of our nerds, like Anthony, keeps getting Yahtzees. Have you noticed that? He got one, and then like a couple of weeks later, he got a freaking another one. And he must
have a cold head, and he needs another hat. You know,
he's gonna replace one of us. That's for darn sure, man. He's too good.
Get him on the show.
All right, Yahtzees abound. All right, today's car is a car that I've never freaking heard of.
Yes, you have. You must remember this.
We are not experts.
Robin
what the hell
Leach,
is this thing?
Robin Leach, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. Remember when the DuPont registry came out?
I do.
You don't remember these things?
What is it?
This was
tell us about
such
what the car is.
80s.
What is this thing?
So San Francisco Bid Nerd Herd member John Duckworth submitted for our review that Cars and Bids is offering a 1985 Bidder SC. One of 461 ever produced over like a 6 or 7 year period. They only built 461 coupes. They built like 22 convertibles, and then I think they built like 8 sedans. So they're very, very rare cars, the SC by the numbers. But John, I have to admit that I always thought bidders were British. And it turned out they're German. And then later in Bidder's career, the cars were produced in Austria, but the company is German. And it uses an Opel, which is GM, but Opel is GM's European counterpart. It uses an Opel inline 6, a 3-liter inline 6 that makes about 177 horsepower and about 173 pound-foot of torque. It runs that through a Getrag 5-speed manual transmission and drives the rear wheels. But the whole point of Bidder was to be like these ultra luxurious European sort of sport touring cars. And JP, while it doesn't look, modern by any stretch, if you look at the silhouette of the car that was designed by Pininfarina, it is very or eerily similar to a Ferrari 400i or a Ferrari 412. The lines on this car are very close to that. And then inside, the entire inside of this car is covered in what they call buttercream leather, and everything is stitched in leather. The dashboard, the doors, the steering wheel, the seats, the headrest, the whole thing is covered in leather. I don't know what I want to say about this car. It's like it's stuck between two worlds. It's like it's ugly, but it's not really that ugly, and it's kind of beautiful, but it's really not that beautiful. It's kind of somewhere in between. It's a very interesting car to look at, and I've never studied one. I've only ever seen like a photo of one back in the 80s when they were for sale, and I always thought they were British, and therefore they never interested me. But when you step back and look at it today, our car is showing just 33,900 miles. It looks really clean. It's offered out of Marietta, Georgia. And as I had mentioned, or maybe forgot to mention, it is on Cars and Bids, which I have to tell you is the perfect place for this car. I mean, is this not right down Doug DeMuro's road or what? So here you go. I present to you the Bitter. Never very successful. This might be the most produced car he ever made. If he made something more than this one, I would be surprised, but I think this 461 is, of the handful of models that he ever produced in the Bitter career, this probably has to be the most popular. And as I understand it, I think this car was made for America, which is really interesting. So half of the 461 came to North America. So I believe this is a North American model. Should pass smog and be, correct to the Department of Traffic and everything that they would want of the car. These cars never took off in value, so you're not going to be blown away by the values by any stretch of the imagination. But I don't know. What do you think, John? When you look at that, it's distinctly 80s. I mean, if you had stupid money to throw around, this would be a cool car to buy just to go to Radwood and win a trophy, right?
Yeah, well, what was the horsepower on this thing?
177 horsepower from a normally aspirated inline six.
Huh, that's really interesting. Yeah, like I just said, I don't know anything about these at all. When we were going through, when we were teeing up the show, like you said, I'm looking at this. For those of you guys that know, we have a spreadsheet, of course, with all the cars that we talk about and all the meta that we, and everything. And, I saw SC and I just assumed it was a 911. That's how much, Deeb does all the homework and research and I just wing it, right? I push the buttons. So I'm like, oh, great, another SC. I thought bitter meant like the color. That was like bitter green
bitter
or something
chocolate.
like that.
Bitter chocolate. Yeah,
like, all right,
that's a good guess.
Whatever. And it wasn't. Look at these. Look at the exhaust. Look at the mufflers. Yeah. They're two vertical mufflers, Magnaflows, hilarious.
Magnaflows, yep, and pop-up headlights, which I forgot to mention. Our friend in Vegas is going to tear me down for not mentioning the pop-up headlights, but the silhouette of this car is very.
I thought when I saw the photo, that was the thing. We teed it up, and I saw the photo, and I thought it was one of those Ferrari 400s or whatever those are called.
I said, what car are we starting with? And you go the Ferrari, and I'm pulling up the 74, and you're pulling up the Bitter, and you're like, wait a minute, cut.
Yeah,
that's not the Ferrari. So as we finally went live, I was cracking up because I realized that you had thought this was the Ferrari, and that just made me laugh.
Well, like, to that effect, though, to that end,
look at that.
Like I said, I don't know anything about this car. I don't know how it drives. I don't know how reliable it is. But a straight six is a great engine almost no matter who makes it, because it's a great platform for an engine. It's not as complex as a V, and it's very I got to think that this is way more reliable than the Ferrari 400. And I have no idea, but I got to think that this is like I would love this car if is this a cheap car? Is this something that you can get?
Yes.
Can you get a Ferrari 400 that's basically reliable with a manual get rag transmission? That's awesome. I'm kind of stoked about this thing. I think it's great. Hell yeah. Rock this car. No, you're not going to see one at Cars and Cafe or Cars and Coffee or Supercar Sunday or anything, but it is, dude, I love it. If the price is right, I'm in. What are we talking about?
How many times have we gone and seen like a safari car, and instead of a mobile Pegasus, they do some other like like a flying skeleton or a flying moose or some
Yeah.
silly thing. And I think we saw a Volvo, or what did we see? I can't remember. But imagine instead of putting Ferrari shields, you did a yellow shield, but some other
Oh yeah, the
animal,
Volvo
and you
has
put
a
on the
moose
side.
on
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah, something that would be hilarious on this car, along those lines, where it's the fake Ferrari. So let's dig into it. So the bidder, our car closes basically just in a day from now. We always usually start with the car that's closing the soonest. At the moment, John, on Cars and Bids out of Marietta, Georgia, our car is sitting at $12,666 on 16 bids. All the money in the world for one of these things is like 45 grand. Nice ones bring 20 to 25. I'm going to say $25,000 for this car. Just because it's so obscure, I don't know that there's zero demand for a bidder, like a nice used bidder. There's zero demand. So I don't know how you assess the value. It looks to be in such nice condition that to me it should be a $50,000 car, just based on how good it looks and how young the miles are on the drivetrain and whatnot. And I can't imagine that it being a GM derived inline six, and a pretty straightforward get drag transmission, that any competent mechanic couldn't work on this thing. However, parts might be obscure. So, I'm going 25 grand, but based on nothing at all. If it brought 30 or 35, I wouldn't be surprised. But even though Cars and Bids is the right obscure platform for this obscure car, I just don't see enough demand to drive it over my guess of $25,000. So I'm going to send it over to you at $25,000 with the question is, if it goes under, John, should I look for this in your garage in Vegas?
Yeah, man. I mean, you gotta have a couple of $10,000 laying around in your safe or something like that, just burning a hole in your pocket to buy. Who wants this thing? Nobody wants this thing, unfortunately. I don't think it's going to get anywhere near 25. I mean, it's a day left and it's at 12.5 on Cars and Bids. Cars and Bids does not see those, doubling of prices in the last 24 hours. This could be the last bid. How many, there's 16 bids. I think it should be worth 25,000. I'm with you. 50. It looks like $100,000 car. It looks like an old Ferrari. Yeah. If I had some money burning in my pocket, hell yeah, I would own this thing. The thing that I don't know though is like, we say that it's probably more reliable than the Ferrari, but what are the electronics on this? Is it got Lucas Electronics or something?
No, because it's not British. It's not British.
No? All right.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
one would hope that it's like not. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
we'll see.
I don't know. Look, I'm gonna say $19,999. I'm gonna say it doesn't break 20. That's my guess, and it is exactly that. This is pure guess. Who the hell knows? Have you guys ever heard of a bidder SC? This video is gonna get 4 views. So if you're one of those 4 people, you are part of the Nerd Herd. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Hit the subscribe and like and notification button now.
Thanks, Duckworth, for getting us a car that's only going to get 4 views. He better give us a bid on this before it closes. So I'm waiting for my text.
Crazy. All right. Well, let us know in the comments below. Have you ever driven one? Anybody that know anything about this, give us a data dump so that we can at least sound like we know what we're talking about on the other half of the show.
Too late.
Too late. All right. Let's find out what happens with this bidder SC right after this. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. right, guys, welcome to the future. We went way in the future this week because my partner Michael Deeb wasn't feeling so good last week, and so here we are. We're back at it, and in the meantime, we had the first Cars in Cafe in San Francisco. That went pretty darn well, Michael Deeb. What do you think of that?
Not bad at all. I don't think we should spend too much time talking about it on this bitter thing because I don't think anybody's going to watch this episode. So we'll talk about it more. But it was really fun. Cars in Cafe, San Francisco. Who knew, man? Wow, Untapped. That was great.
Good times. Hopefully that will continue every month, the last Sunday of the month. All right. So bitter. What was the bitter end? Where did anybody pay for this car? What happened, Michael Deeb?
No, it's weird, because weird car and then weird host, right? What's his name? Doug DeMuro on Cars and Bids. We sort of thought maybe he is the guy that could sell this car. So I said $25,000. Honestly, just saying that I think that's kind of what the car is worth, maybe a little bit more. I mean, this one looks exceptionally clean. If one was worth more money, it would have to be this particular example. You took the under at $19,999. And I do think you were probably using your brain and considering the platform as well. The car reached $22,888 where it failed to sell on 44 bids on Cars and Bids. So I missed a Yahtzee by $388. So let's start with that because this might be the closest I come to a win or a Yahtzee for the entire month of July. But I don't know, John. The question here is at $23,000 for a car that looks to be in really nice condition and is in some quantifiable way rare, truly rare, and kind of an epic little car. Do you think that this car would have pulled more money had it been on Bring a Trailer? And I'll give you my answer before you give me yours. I do. This one was clean enough, maybe not with these photos, but like, could you imagine if like a real photographer shot this car and made it look nice, that it couldn't have brought $30,000 or $35,000 at least, and maybe sold at one of those two numbers on BA2? I do. I know this car is going to weird, and maybe you're going to just shoot it down and say, Deeb, there's no market for a bidder because nobody knows what it is and nobody wants one. But there are enough people watching BAT that if something strange enough comes across the block, I feel like somebody would get off their wallet and put more than $23,000 on it. And so I'll argue with you. I think that it would. I think this car would have done better than $23,000 on BAT with photos, though. Has had better photos.
Yeah, I mean, you're arguing with me, but I don't really know if I disagree. Other than the photos thing, I don't think the photos are a problem here.
Really?
Actually, yeah, the photos are fine. They're not particularly romantic or whatever, but they do represent the car well. And the car looks good. It's evenly lit. It's on a nice overcast day. Frankly, I like these shots with this level 6 up here. Kudos to the photographer because he didn't go on the level with like a green thing in the background. That actually looks kind of cool.
Marietta, Georgia, I think this car should have been photographed in front of some southern plantation home with the Spanish moss and pillars.
None of that makes a difference if nobody knows what the thing is. I mean, there's a difference between weird and obscure. Right, so this car is a little bit of both, and DeMuro can only pull off weird. He can't pull off super obscure. So I'm with you on the BAT thing because this car needed exposure. This car needed to get enough of an audience that 1% of the audience knows what it is. I don't think there's, so maybe there's 10 people that know what this car is on Cars and Bids, but on BAT because it gets probably 10 times the traffic. I don't know what that number, I really would be interesting to find out what the actual page views are per platform. But I gotta think that it's 10 times greater on BAT. Even if the percentage of any audience is the same, regardless of which platform, if it's 10% or 1%, if it's 10% out of 100, you got 10 people that know what this thing is on Cars and Bids. That's 100 people. If it's 1,000, you know what I mean? It's like there's just not enough traffic to find those few people that know.
This thing got 15,500 views. I mean, that's not bad, but
Yeah.
15,000 cars and bids views is not the same as, maybe 100,000 views on BAT, right?
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It's like 15,000. Probably 2/3 of those were clicking on it to go, what is that? What even is this thing? And I suspect that same thing would have happened on Bring a Trailer, but you would have come across a lot more people that would have known what it is. Yeah, whatever. I don't know. I mean, I still want to drive one of these. I still actually like this car. It's kind of a bummer that it's just, so it didn't sell. So what happens to this car? Got to wonder what this guy's reserve was. Did he think this thing was worth $100,000? Like, how far away did he miss? Was this a couple hundred? And how frustrating for the few people that were bidding on this thing. They're bidding along going, all right, do I have a chance at getting this? I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
44 bids. I mean, it's not, they were definitely playing with their food for a little while.
Yeah.
But I look, I have to think the reserve number, like realistically, the reserve that Cars and Bids would have awarded this guy had to only been like 25, 30 grand. I can't imagine that Doug gave him a $35,000 reserve, or maybe he did just to run the car, but I don't think they operate like that. I just don't think they do. I could be wrong. But I also don't think this car's worth over 50 grand either,
No, but that's the thing. There are no comps, and I think this car is interesting and cool enough that if I were a betting man, I'd say that the reserve was 50 grand. Because what is Cars and Bids going to say? They don't know. There's no way you could possibly know what this car is going to bid to, because there's just nothing to judge it by. $50,000, $100,000, $5,000. Who the hell knows? There aren't any. So it's that cool. It's the kind of thing that could get somebody going.
Yeah. What year is this thing again?
It's like,
85
Way to make compelling content. Yeah.
What do
you guys think out there?
Hold on. Wait.
You got something?
Wait. Yeah, I got something. So again,
into the microphone. What the hell?
The Haggerty price guide says that a number one concourse condition car is only worth $36,500.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So there is
So I don't
something.
think 50 grand. Yeah. All right. And then the other thing is, we were talking about page views and like, how long people are on. We're going to get, I hope we get Frank the Tank Carrington, who's now working for Cars and Bids, on as a guest host in the very near future. And maybe he can pull back the curtain a little bit about operationally how Cars and Bids thinks and operates. And hopefully he'll get on here real soon with us and be a third nerd. And then, just share a few things that maybe, we'd all love to hear, because you don't get those opportunities all the time. So Frank came to Cars und Cafe and brought little Frank Jr., who we didn't get a chance to, I had never met before. Frank the Fifth, yeah.
Frank literally took the fifth.
Yeah. So anyways, we'll have Frank on there. There you go. So that's all happening, and we'll see what they said about this bidder. Maybe he knows the reserve on this car.
That'd be cool. All right, guys, what do you think about this bidder car? Bid to the bitter end and did not have a resolution, just failed to sell. Do you think the seller should have taken the money and ran, or do you think it was a good move on the seller's part to sit on this car a little longer and find someone that realizes the true value of the car? Let us know in the comments below, and we will see you guys tomorrow on another episode of Bid Nerds or something like that.
Get those words!